I'm ready, are you?
And we're rolling.
It's my pleasure to call the Tuesday, September 10th, 2013 meeting of the Coastside County Water District Board of Directors to order. And Joanne, would you please call the roll?
Certainly. Director Michelson?
Here.
Vice President Reynolds?
Here.
Director Hannigan is absent. Director Feldman?
Here.
President Cabrillo?
Here. And let's see, Director Michelson, could you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
My sixth grade teacher made me write it 25 times. I've got it down now.
Well, then maybe you could just go solo.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Amen. Thank you very much. I see that 25 times paid big dividends. And now we have, as a portion of our agenda, public comment. Are there any members of the public that would like to make a comment tonight? I don't have any speaker slips, so moving right along to the continuation of the public hearing on the Coastside County Water District Proposed Ordinance 2013-01, modifying Section W of the district's general regulations regarding water service pertaining to the control of backflow and cross connections. And so I think we tabled this until tonight, right?
Yeah, at the last
Continued
board
it.
meeting, you continued the public
Continued.
hearing, and so this is a continuation of the continued public hearing.
Okay, so I would like to open the public hearing on this proposed ordinance. And hearing no input, close the public meeting, is that how that works?
Yeah, you might ask your general manager for a brief staff report, and then you can see if there's anybody from the one public that would like to comment on it. And then you can, then the board has a discretion whether it's ready to close the public hearing and proceed to act or not.
Oh, okay, fine. I just thought if there was no buddy that wanted to speak from the general public, we might just go right to the board discussion and input. But I can leave it open for a while. So, General Manager Dixon, would you like to give us a brief synopsis of where we are and where we're going?
Sure, we had a very good discussion of the proposed ordinance last time. A number of questions, issues were raised, and we got together, and this staff report represents kind of our joint effort to respond to some of the questions and issues that came up mostly from the board members. And I'll just review some of these here. There was some questions about whether there were enough certified backflow testers, and there was also something said about a backflow test costing $100. Well, they don't cost $100, and there are plenty of backflow testers. To give you a feel for that, we've attached the list of backflow testers. We've got over 20 companies and more individuals than companies currently on our approved backflow tester list. Attachment B is behind the resolution. So the answer is yes, there are enough. We haven't heard from anybody that they haven't been able to find somebody to test their backflow device. $50 backflow test.
Yeah, I haven't seen that before.
Acme AAA cheap backflow.
Yeah, exactly, $50 backflow.
Yeah, they need something to get to the top of the list, that's the thing.
Hey, tell them what you're offering. man.
We had quite a bit of discussion, both internally and with the board, over should we establish a deadline. And so we went back, our initial draft had imposed a deadline of January 2015. We felt like that would sort of give everybody like a year and a half to do nothing. January 2015 was our first thought, right. So we think that about 6 months from the time the ordinance passes, about the end of March 2014, is a reasonable amount of time to give people to comply. And, one of the good news things is, since we wrote the letter saying that we were proposing this ordinance and that all non-single family residential customers were going to be subject to backflow requirements, 24 new backflow devices have been installed basically in response just to that letter.
Great.
So in general, one of the directors, I think was Director Reynolds, who said, well, no business owner wants to be associated with a backflow incident. And we find that the business owners and the property owners that we've talked to have generally been very supportive of the requirement. Some people have some initial hesitation. Yeah, it is expensive, but I think everybody buys into protect the water supply. So, we really haven't gotten much feedback. So we think March 31st, 2014 is a good amount of time. It'll give us some more time to get organized. We will send out, we'll do outreach between now and then, remind people. We've got an idea of what our higher priority customers are in terms of backflow protection, and those are the ones that come March, April, we'll mostly be focusing on. One of the other concerns, and it's down the list a little bit, will somebody who doesn't have a backflow protection device after March 31st be threatened with jail time? The answer to that is not by the district. We took that language out. So that was a concern of a couple of our public commenters, that sounded a little harsh. So we will be focusing on monitoring compliance between now and March 31st and particularly after March 31st. That's fairly close, but gives people a reasonable amount of time to comply. We looked at kind of this issue of would it be better for the district to do it ourselves, installation and or testing of backflow devices. And we don't think that we could do it as cheaply as private contractors, mostly because we don't have an extra, it's not a full-time job here. We don't have an extra half person available. So we would, and it's difficult for us to hire partial people. So we would end up with a fairly expensive person doing backflow testing. And we'd have to charge a lot more than these private contractors charge, and we'd take their business away. So really, we didn't feel like that would be in the interest of the district. Seems like the approach we're taking works. There are plumbers out there who are really happy to have the business. It keeps their people employed, and the customers, the property owners, are getting the backflow devices installed. If in the future, once we've got 600 or 700 of these things out there, it seems like it makes sense for the district to get more involved, and we can do that. Well, there was always this question about residential services. Will backflow devices be installed, be required in residential services and on residential fire services? The answer to that is, with regard to fire services, they already have, for the most part, have backflow devices. We said nearly all because there must be an exception out there somewhere, but all of the new fire protection services go in with what's called a detector check, and we didn't have one I could bring in and show you. But it's basically it's a check valve which has a little bypass meter, and the check valve has enough force on it that low flows will go through the meter, so that's the detector part of it. And if there's a fire and the sprinklers turn on, then that higher flow will open the backflow, will open the check valve, and so you'll get the higher flow you need. But we're able to detect when people are using water, so we prohibit using any water through those connections. So those are supplied with backflow protection. The ordinance requires that all commercial fire systems be required to have backflow protection. Those have to be tested and certified if they're reduced pressure principle devices. In terms of residential, we're not requiring retrofit of residential residential connections, but in our routine meter replacement program, which has about a 20-year cycle, we'll be installing check valves on all residential connections. And this is, I brought a couple of examples of residential check valves. There's a right angle one attached to the meter. So when we replace the meter, we add the check valve. This is an inline check valve. Special request to show it for the camera. So Those will be installed by the district as we go through our meter replacement cycle. They're the property of the district. The homeowner's not responsible for any testing or certification. They're not testable anyway. So it's our position that every connection to the water system needs some kind of backflow protection. Every connection to the water system has the potential to backflow and contaminate the water system. Residential without wells, things like that, probably lower risk. Is there any backflow protection device built into a meter? We haven't been able to find one. That was one of the public comment questions. Very good question. There are things like those detector checks, but nothing like this. It's a residential meter with a backflow device built in. I answered the question about single-family residential. The question came up, should we explore funding, rebate, or payment programs that ease the burden of the cost of installing these devices? In thinking some more about that, it would be a challenge. It's very doable, but there would be plenty of work and expense involved in setting it up. Just how we guarantee that people will pay us is one problem. And we already faced that challenge, as we'll see tonight on our consent agenda, in just our regular business. So that, it's a non-trivial amount of work to set up lien programs or whatever it takes to ensure that the district gets paid when we loan people money. And there doesn't seem to be a lot of demand. Nobody has said to us, gee, can you loan me the money, or can you give me an amortization program, or whatever. People are just, that's a cost of doing business, and people seem to be willing to comply. Again, that's something that if in the future it seems like that would make the program go better, that it would address the needs of a significant number of customers, it's something we could consider. And then finally, I mentioned that we took out the criminal penalties language.
Good idea.
For willful contamination of the water system, the law, other than our regulations, provides for criminal penalties, and that's what we would rely on. We don't want to send any of our customers to jail. We do think that backflow and cross-connection protection is a very serious issue, though, and should be regarded as such by everybody. So with that, I will answer any questions the board might have.
So again, I guess what I was thinking is that we might open it to the general public, close it to the general public, complete it. I understand it is, but I'm saying that, so we might close the meeting to the general public unless we have comments, and then we can discuss it and make a decision.
Okay.
So any objection to closing the public meeting?
You might want to, just, one thing for the record is, were there any additional comments submitted to the district between the last public hearing and tonight?
There were not.
Okay, so for the record, no other written comments were received for the board to consider.
Great, thank you. Thanks for that. So with no objections, I'll close the public meeting on this issue and open it to the board. And anybody have comments?
Yeah, I have a comment. Well, I was really happy I was at the last meeting, and I'd like to think I played a role in getting this tabled, because number 4 was of great concern to me. You know, it appears as though it has been addressed. Just doing an informal survey in our district, it appears about 15 years ago, commercial fire services went from just a post indicator valve to a full-blown, backflows. Ken, how much did yours cost at your place?
Oh my gosh, I can't remember, $6,000 for the piece alone.
Yeah, so $6,000 to $10,000, and that was, we were about to impose that on the remaining 300, and I don't think there was a really firm understanding here of the cost associated with that. I know the smaller ones, I'm guessing, I've installed like 3 myself. If you hired a plumber, $1,000, $1,200. $6,000 to $10,000 burden on our customers. Retrofitting something just screams, nanny state, over-regulating, of society. It's just, imposing more and more, layers of costs on the businessman. That's why I was very defensive about this. And I think, I wish staff had vetted this a little more thoroughly. Certainly, you know, the potential jailing of our customers, it just didn't read that well at our last meeting. So I'm glad that, you know, we have dialed it down a little bit, dialed down to a level, you know, where it still provides a level of safety for our customers without, you know, imposing a really high cost on some of our customers, because anybody, and there's a lot of buildings that went up in the air, you know, prior to 15 years ago, and it would have been hundreds of people facing these costs. So my concerns have been addressed, and I want to thank you for that. And so I'm getting a little more comfortable with this. Thanks.
I think staff has worked really hard to make this a very fair and reasonable and clear program. I'm in favor of it.
No, I think staff did well in modifying the ordinance to represent the comments that were given both by the public participants and the directors last time, and I think that's got all the right moving parts now. So I'm pleased to see that it was modified as we had suggested.
Yeah, I mean, I think the work on staff's part is extensive and very comprehensive. So I'm excited to see it, and I just appreciate the great note-taking in the meeting, because there was an awful lot of
that's a good point.
discussion. And I think that you know, got a succinct list and addressed the issues.
Thanks to
So,
Joanne, yeah.
Yeah.
And we do go back and watch the video. I don't know if any of you have looked at video on our website, but
I'm too scared to.
Yeah.
those,
I know,
yeah,
me
those
too.
staff uses the video on the website. It's all nicely chaptered according to the agenda items, and we actually go back and listen to it to make sure that we respond. Not
Well,
always.
Well, I've got them
Case like this.
archived. I think the family, you know, in 3 or 4 generations want to watch that, you know, just night after night. It's just fantastic television. I mean, really. So entertain a motion, anybody?
I'll make a motion to pass the, I'd like to make a motion that we adopt ordinance number 2013-01.
I'll second the motion.
Any further discussion? It's been motioned and seconded that we approve the modification of Section W of the district's general regulations regarding water service pertaining to the control of backflow and cross connections. Moved by Vice President Reynolds and seconded by Director Feldman. And could you please have a roll call?
Sure.
Vote.
Director Michelson?
Yes.
Vice President Reynolds?
Aye.
Director Hannigan is absent. Director Feldman?
Yes.
And President Cabrillo?
Yes, thank you very much. Thanks for the great job, really great work. So the next item on our agenda is the consent calendar. Are there any items that any directors would like to pull from the consent calendar? I reviewed the financial,
That was gonna be my next question, was who did that?
well, I'm just so glad that we added this line here, because, I mean, I've gotten to an age where sometimes I can't remember. It's like, oh, that was 2 months ago, you idiot. You know, so it makes you feel kind of silly. But I reviewed the financial statements. They looked perfectly in order to me. The petty cash and credit card statements looked in order. And so I would tell you that I would personally approve what I read. And be open to a motion to approve the consent calendar?
I can make a motion to accept the consent calendar.
I second the motion.
So it's been moved by Vice President Reynolds, seconded by Director Feldman, that we accept the consent calendar as presented. Could you again call the roll?
Sure.
Thanks, Jordan.
Director Michelson?
Yes.
Vice President Reynolds?
Aye.
Director Hannigan is absent. Director Feldman?
Yes.
And President Cabrillo?
Yes, thank you very much. Next item is meetings attended and director's comments. Are there any meetings?
Yeah, I attended a 2-day workshop in Sacramento by the Regional Water Quality Control Board and the Department of Public Health on nitrate in drinking water. And the state, by partnering the two divisions, has expressed their escalation of nitrate contamination as a priority and the #1 health threat in drinking water for the state of California. Wow. And it was really, it was a very educational seminar. It was startling to hear some of the challenges. We're now having public water systems with over 300 parts per million of nitrate. The limit is 45. Interesting, the second day they had treatment options and presentations, and they were savvy enough to bring in independents who spoke on some of the shortcomings of the vendors, who were very happy to explain that that why pick me, and then they had some counterpoints, which was nice to see. So a subject that I think will affect us indirectly, but as the Central Valley water systems get more and more stressed, that will flow towards us in terms of stress on water.
How do you get rid of nitrates in water?
The treatments that they presented was membrane treatment, which got very bad reviews due to the waste of water, but primarily the concentration of the nitrate disposal stream that then becomes a much more serious pollutant than you started with, because you've now concentrated this stream and you now have a hazardous waste or a pollutant that's very significant. Ion exchange was the most popular method discussed, but to clean it, you backwash it with salt and then have a nitrate and salt disposal. Yeah. This is how the conference is going, and people are talking. There was probably 20 communities that were trucking their salt nitrate brine to East Bay Mud and paying to have it disposed. Wow. And it literally was going to bankrupt 3 communities. Wow. If they followed their projection of what they were going to spend. Then there was several presentations on biological remediation, and those seemed brilliant because nitrate is a fertilizer. The Department of Public Health was, waving their hands and saying, yes, but you're growing bugs in the water, so then you have to run a surface water treatment plant to treat that. And so, but the sludge and waste disposal cost 2 to 3 times the cost of running the actual treatment in some of the scenarios. Wow. Yeah. It was educational to learn and see. So something I think we should follow to be aware of what is challenging the system, and be aware that I was stunned when I saw the maps on where the nitrate is hitting, because I've always associated with this with specific localities, and when they started plotting them out, and it should be known by this group that our region here on the coast was on the state map. Sure. And is listed, and there have been nitrate issues associated with this region.
Before this board, some number of years ago, they detected nitrates in the wells in Miramar, coming from more than likely a nursery across the street, and it was made into a political issue. We didn't have connections for them, even their wells were in distress, and it was not very pleasant to deal with at this level, because we didn't have the connections to give these people on wells. So I certainly hope a county representative was there, because I don't believe there's a requirement to test your wells in the county of San Mateo.
This came up a lot, and there weren't, and so this was the Department of Public Health talking about municipals.
Right.
And there were quite a few groups saying, but what about all the people on wells?
There's no testing
There's no
requirement.
testing.
Yeah.
There's not even. They felt there wasn't even public outreach. To tell them,
Right,
hey,
right,
we
right.
don't do it, but you should test
Yeah.
it. And there was a lot of talks. You bring up a really important. I would ask the question: should we be trying to provide that education to our neighbors so that they know, as the Coastside County Water District?
It would certainly, communication with county health. I mean, in the past, they've threatened to, I don't know if they've ever followed through. I know we were pretty far along down the road of GISing our system. They had at one time threatened to GIS all the wells here on the coast. I don't know if they've completed that. There's never any funds for these things that are actually pretty worthy at the end of the day. Because I did learn, the whole blue baby thing, and it inhibits the uptake of oxygen in young children. It's not so bad for adults, but certainly you would think at this point the county would have an inventory of all wells, and you could push a button and you'd get all the addresses, and you could alert them that maybe they should be testing or some kind of requirement. Why the county's not doing it, I don't know. Should we get involved? I don't know an answer.
Well, it sure would be worth discussing. I mean, we should agendize it as a discussion and, figure out if we want to get involved, right?
Or certainly, a communication with Department of Health, Dean Peterson at County San Mateo, and, do they have, a comprehensive list of all the well owners here on the coast? That'd be a good starting point.
Well, they were in that mapping process. I mean, they came and, they were also mapping septic systems.
Yeah, but
So-
did they complete it? I don't know, I hadn't heard.
You never know. That's the problem, is
Yeah.
they get these things started and then the budget runs
Yeah.
out. That kind of,
There's really no good list. We know of some and we record it when we find out. And we can now, using our own GIS, run, say, the developed residential properties that don't have, in our territory, that don't have service connections are pretty good bets for wells. What's harder to find is people with service connections and wells, because there were times when we didn't necessarily catch that, and they weren't all required to destroy them. So we'd like to catch it because they're subject to our backflow protection requirements.
sure.
So we've been talking about ways that we could improve our knowledge of wells. We'd really like to know. But nobody should have the impression that nitrates are a problem in any of our sources
Right.
of supply.
Right.
Now there is a nitrate problem in the Denniston Aquifer up by the airport. Some of those airport wells have very high level, have to require treatment before the water can be used. And that's just the issue you're talking
And,
about.
and south of here as
Right.
well.
Right. But we do not
Pescadero.
have any nitrate, for our local sources, nitrates are not an issue.
Yeah. Okay, so if we're interested, we should agendize this, and that's enough for reporting time, I think. Yeah. Sorry, ma'am, but the egg beater just won. The egg time. Anybody else attend meetings? You must have hit the first Bosca meeting by now.
No, I think it's this month,
Oh, great.
first one, right? Did the board packet arrive here yet?
With a new president?
Is it the third Thursday? I think it's on for this month, so. Where do the agendas go? Historically, they used to come here, the agendas.
For Bosca?
Oh, where do the agendas go?
Yeah.
You'll get them directly.
Oh, they're direct now? 'Cause
Yeah.
then when I was last on, I
Yeah,
would
and
pick
it's
them up here.
They love it electronically.
Okay.
But they'll send it to you hard copy. And
Okay.
You know that Nicole Sanduke, I can't say her
Sanduke.
name.
Cool.
Yeah, she's the new leader of the pack.
Oh.
Right,
She's
right.
replacing Art. Yeah, so that was kind of an interesting thing. But anyway. I didn't-
There we go again.
That's a director's
Hey, can we
comment.
talk about these deadbeats on the consent? We can talk, I'm getting, see, I knew I'd get a positive nod out of him. The same person got us twice.
Oh, I didn't see that.
How did that happen?
You talking about Doug Adams?
No, sure, Suresh John Dial.
Yeah.
So anyway, we'll move along to general business, and first item on our
The write-offs.
agenda is award of contract for the Phase 2 Ave Cabrillo Pipeline Replacement Project. Take it away, Dave.
First and only item on our agenda. This is a phase 2 of the Avenue Cabrillo Pipeline Replacement Project. Give you a little diagram. This is a phased project. Got these old 2-inch plastic and galvanized pipes over there. They've been the site of a lot of leaks.
Did Stolowski do the first phase?
He did. And this is just further evidence that doing these projects is expensive. Our engineer's estimate from a couple of years ago when Jim Teeter designed these, $246,000, that's what we put in our CIP. We got a nice range of bids, but the lowest was $333,000 from Andrini Brothers. They range from $333 to $476. So It's 2,000 feet of pipe. You know, our rule of $1 million, we may have to up our $1 million a mile
$1.5 million.
estimate a little bit. But we're happy that Andrini is a very good contractor, doesn't require us to watch over them so much as certain other contractors. So
Certain other contractors will
very-
remain nameless.
we were very pleased with that Andrini got the work. So we're recommending that, although this is in excess of our engineer's estimate, we need to go forward. So we're recommending that we award this contract.
Discussion, input, comments, motion?
Platinum, who's Platinum? Platinum Pipeline.
Don't know. They
That's
haven't done any
new,
work
that-
for us.
Yeah, that's a new name on the bid list.
I don't know, but
I see.
platinum costs more than gold again.
The San Benito pipeline replacement, that's a separate project, right?
Yeah, that's 100 feet of pipe over in downtown. 2 inch, it was the replacement of 2-inch galvanized. There's a new house going in that needed a fire service, and we just kind of said, okay, well, it's not very much, that's in the program anyway.
Oh, really, we didn't hit the homeowner? That was nice of us.
Didn't seem quite right.
So, yes.
No, that's,
They're paying for a small portion.
Right.
no, because I know sometimes, you know, if you happen to be that person who's building that new infill house and you have an inadequate, you know, fire pressure in front of your house, and then the fire department requires a mainline extension, next thing you know, there's another very large expense. So that's.
I think it's
that
reasonable
was
to
pretty fair
expect
of
that a
us.
water district should have more than a 2-inch main
Yeah.
in a city
Yeah.
street. I mean, those are,
Well, I know other districts will lay that off on, and we'll lay that off on the homeowner, so I think we're treating our customers very fairly. Certainly, neighbor to the north would do that. Thanks.
Well, I think Andrini solidly won the bid. Anybody want to make a motion?
Oh,
I'll make a motion to that effect that we award the contract to Andrini Brothers.
okay, I'll second it.
It's been moved by Director Michelson and seconded by Vice President Reynolds that we approve Andrini's bid and award the contract for this replacement of Phase 2 of the Avenue Cabrillo pipeline. Any discussion? All those in could you please call roll?
Director Johnson?
Yes.
Vice President Reynolds?
Yes.
Director Hannigan is absent. Director Feldman?
Yes.
President Cabrillo?
Aye.
What's the time frame for that? Once it's awarded, how long does it take?
Before the rain.
I'm not sure what the time allowed is. It'll take a couple of months.
I didn't know, just
Yeah.
approximately a couple of months.
Yeah, a couple of
Prior
months.
to the, all right, once it's awarded. Probably prior to Christmas.
So General Manager's report.
Okay,
Dave,
just a
please.
couple of things this month. The rim fire was a huge deal for SFPUC, not so much the water side as the power side, but it was really, they were really losing a major amount of sleep over potential effects of the rim fire on the water supply. And the wholesale customers were also very concerned. So we had a daily conference call with PUC staff. I think they did a really excellent job of keeping us updated. The worst case scenario for the SFPUC on the water side is that either ash fall onto the surface of the reservoir or runoff from fire affected areas in the watershed would significantly increase turbidity. Right now, San Francisco operates under a waiver of the surface water treatment rule, but the waiver's conditioned on the turbidity staying low. If it approaches, I think, 5 turbidity units, they would have to treat all the water. And they don't, their treatment capacity at Sunol and Harry Tracy is a little bit marginal in terms of their ability to meet the entire demand of San Francisco and the wholesale customers. So they made all kinds of contingency plans as how they were gonna get the water if they had to either stop using Hetch Hetchy for a while or treat it all. But as it turns out, the ashfall fear didn't materialize. They as soon as they were able to get it onto the watershed, I think that was a week ago Friday, they went out and did some depth profile samples, and the turbidity of the water they were taking out at a depth of 260 feet at the dam was still 0.2, and the turbidity at the surface was 0.17 or something like that. So those are typical numbers, and you could almost say that there has been no detectable effect of the fire on the quality of the water. But it was interesting, somehow the press got a hold of the story of threat to the water supply, and there was, if you read the Chronicle or heard the news reports, you had this impression that there was a.
They even made national news.
That it was a huge problem for the water supply, and that just was not the case.
It's so dangerous when those concrete dams burn.
Yeah.
Well, I think fire in the watershed is one of SFPUC's greatest fears. Certainly if that happened in the Crystal Springs watershed, we would have serious issues with water quality, because all that water goes through the Harry Tracy.
But having toured it, you know, I mean,
Yeah.
we have a better understanding. It's surrounded by granite. You know,
But in the
not
end-
much to burn.
Yeah.
In the end, only 1% of the entire watershed, if you look at that diagram, only 1% of the whole watershed was affected, just right next to the reservoir. And that's a very steep and rocky area, so a few little spot fires, but it's not the kind of thing that will create sediment-laden runoff when it rains or anything like that, so what was a big scare and a little more significant in the media than in reality turned out to be it's not so big an effect. They did have some significant damage on the power side that they are still dealing with, and they spent quite a bit of money replacing the power that they weren't able to generate. But again, the PUC the PUC did a very good job of communicating with all of us. They've generally been very responsive to our concerns. And then the other little piece of news, which I'm sure many of you observed personally, was we had a leak out in the Casualino pumpkin field. Fortunately, it didn't happen a month from now, or we'd have been really creating a problem for his business out there. As we've discussed here, we have a very long and very old and worn out steel pipeline that goes out to serve the customers along Highway 92. It's probably the district's original pipeline. It's welded steel, and it's past the end of its useful life, and we have it a few years out. We've kind of been thinking we could keep fixing it. We have it a few years out in the capital program, but we may have to reconsider that. This
How
leak
many
that we
feet? I forgot.
actually,
How
pardon?
many feet is it?
It's about 12,000.
Feet?
Yeah,
3 miles.
right.
Yeah.
That's
2 miles.
Yeah, 2 miles.
And how many
2 3
customers
miles.
is there?
3.
I don't have a count. It's not like, the
29.
3,000-foot line we have
South of-
south of Miramontes Point Road. They're 90.
90, I was gonna
90
say, it's not
customers.
3, it's
Yeah,
more,
it
it's
is.
like
It's quite a
90,
few.
90.
Right.
And how much was it funded for? 3 mil?
Well, that's our placeholder, but it's a
At the rate it's going.
it's a
gonna be
difficult
more.
project, and
Yeah.
No, I'm thinking.
so we
but
don't
if
we
it
don't
breaks-
know. We've fixed several leaks in that area. We've taken the La Nebbia fence down twice and replaced it now to fix the pipe runs very close to the highway. It was actually the farmer getting ready for his parking area that discovered a big wet spot over there. The hole was finger-sized, but it had saturated a very large area. We got the contractor out there, and he did not want to dig a big hole next to a giant eucalyptus tree. So
I
we
saw
cut
it,
this.
yeah.
We cut a huge eucalyptus tree, which had 3 main trunks. And we had the highway patrol there stopping traffic in
Right.
both directions while the guys felled the tree. So it was quite an exciting scene. And the other exciting part is that the only natural gas line supplying the coast runs literally within 3 feet of our pipe. So the PG&E has a welded steel 8-inch gas line with 290 PSI of natural gas in it. Can you imagine putting a hole in that thing? It would not be pretty. We don't want our names in the paper.
3 feet from our,
Right, it's right, just almost right next to it.
How
Let's
far is
trench
the
in a
pipe?
new main.
how far is the pipe from the roadway?
It varies between almost at the white line, you know, if you,
Yeah, it's gonna be.
when you drive past.
It's on the south
South
side.
side.
Yeah, when you drive
On
past
the
La
line.
Nebbia, you can see the fire hydrant that's out in front of the
Okay,
winery, so
it's
that's
on
the
the white
pipe.
line to how
Yeah.
far in? Does it go in further?
Well, in some places it jogs behind the properties,
Oh, okay.
so at some places it goes maybe 100 feet back from the for some reason it, you know, who knows what feud they had with
So
the
that's a
property
major,
owners back
it's a
then.
major opportunity
It's
to
a very
replace that
large-
thing, right?
Pardon?
Major opportunity to take it out and put in, or you build a new pipeline.
No, you line it, you go inside it.
Oh, you go in,
We need to look at alternatives
Oh, yeah.
for replacing it, what
Can't
we're
trench there.
considering.
can't trench that out now.
So the good news is we think we found that leak and we fixed it. The pipe is in such bad shape, there's no guarantee that we won't be back there in a week. And this time of year is a time that's normally kind of favorable to pipe breaks because the soil is dry and it kind of shrinks and things move. So,
It's
Get a
seasonal.
little shake in the ground.
yeah, so,
No?
you know, that definitely is a place that we're gonna have to pay more attention to. We've been talking about doing what the sewer authority has done or something similar, and putting in some stations where we can very quickly bypass a section of pipe that becomes a problem. And then we just run basically a fire hose between these bypass stations or plastic pipe. You know, I almost wish we'd done that this time. If it were to happen during pumpkins, that would be the best way to deal with it.
Yeah,
'Cause
that'd be a lot of fun during the pumpkin
I
festival.
don't know if you drove by and saw us, but we had a huge amount of personnel and equipment and
Mhm.
everything else out in that field. And
Mudfest.
it was,
Mudfest.
yeah. So, it comes with the territory, we need to serve those customers, and that pipeline has been the way to do it, ever since we built the other raw water pipeline.
I think we better move that project up in our plan.
We're thinking, we need to look at that.
Yep.
We have, right now, we have it in the 3 furthest out years of the capital program, with
That's pretty far along.
100,000 worth of planning in about 2 years from now, 15, 16.
Yeah, we better
So,
ramp,
yeah.
better ramp that up.
So our crew did a really good job of getting out there and responding to that and doing it in a way that, I woke up in the middle of the night and texted Joe saying I didn't want to do a sewer authority Coronado. You know, when the sewer authority had that leak on Coronado and they tied up traffic on the
Oh,
entire
yeah.
Coastside. So I don't want those tree cutters out there, you know, somehow blocking 92 during commute hours. So we made them wait till 10 o'clock. We had the highway patrol out there. The highway patrol was great.
Right,
Yeah, so.
Yeah, it's nice to learn from mistakes of other districts.
Well, I just don't want to get in the paper for that. You know, I think they were doing what they needed to do at the time, and fortunately, we were able to do it the way we did it. And I have to credit Joe Gustino and John Bruce especially for doing such a good and fast job. And that concludes my remarks. Joe is unavailable tonight. I can answer questions if you have any about operations.
I had one question. On the San Benito pipeline replacement, I thought our standard was 6-inch piping. Why are we gonna put 4-inch ductile iron in?
Our standards allow 4-inch in a cul-de-sac.
Oh, all right. So we can meet the flows with 4-inch.
Right. Mhm.
Thanks.
But you can't put a hydrant on
It'll have a hydrant. Oh, no,
that.
it won't have a hydrant.
Yeah, Title.
There's a
20
hydrant at the corner of San Benito and
Title 22
Nermanis.
says gotta be 6
So that's
inch.
within the required distance.
Okay.
Great. Yeah, that was,
I'm excited to see the hydraulic models moving forward.
We're going to be doing flow and pressure tests, working with the fire department that Kennedy Jenks specified as being needed to calibrate the
Yeah,
hydraulic
yeah.
model. Yeah.
Good, good.
thank you. So I guess, Kathleen, this is probably the earliest report you've ever made to this board of directors. Thank you so much for hanging in there,
Sure, no problem.
all the way till 7:45.
So, So the Water Resources staff report is on our high efficiency clothes washer rebate program. I know the board is interested in our conservation program, so I thought I'd update you on last fiscal year's a summary report on the progress we made in that rebate program. It's a joint rebate program between Bosca, PG&E, and Coastside County Water District, and other water districts also participate. And it's one of our most successful rebate programs, mainly because PG&E does a great job of doing marketing at the point of sale. So when people are there, the sales staff are very educated, and they can inform the customers that rebates are available and how much they are and which machines qualify. So it's a very good program. So that's kind of one of the reasons it's so successful. We're continuing with the program this fiscal year, and I was just informed that starting January 1st, the program elements are going to change, the qualifying machines and the rebate amounts. And Bosca's going to forward me the new contract. So as soon as I find out what the new program elements are, I'll inform the board of the changes, but they'll take place January 1st.
Great.
And so if you have any questions about my report, I can answer.
Thank you very much.
The picture, the rain picture is not improved much. What's going on in the drought situation, the potential,
We're, so the water year ends at the end of September, but, so right now our local watershed here, we're at about 71-72% of normal. Last year, we were like 60% of normal, so this is 2 consecutive dry years. Last year, I guess you could consider locally here extremely dry, critically dry. So that's the concern, is when we have the multiple dry years. And the latest from the Department of Water Resources and their experts is that the outlook is not looking good for rain this fall and winter. So they are, Department of Water Resources is encouraging water districts to start planning for a 3rd dry year. So, so that's basically where we're at right now.
it means we have to revisit the
It means, yeah.
drought planning,
Yeah, so, yeah.
option set.
Yes,
Right.
we've internally been talking about it, but we definitely need to move that up.
This
Priority.
3 years will be a charm, right?
Yeah.
Not a charm.
Not a charm.
No, 3 years, 3 strikes and you're out is what it says.
Yeah, I think San Francisco would be moved to
Right.
implement some sort of rationing, whether it's voluntary or mandatory.
So we just have to revisit our, quote, strategy, development for the rationing,
Yes.
option.
Yes, we need to put, some more effort into the plan.
Okay, remembering that, yes.
I think that it should definitely be assigned to the committee.
It is.
Water resources.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we already, that's
Bob
all.
and I.
Yes, that'd be great
Yeah.
to, and you guys have you met recently on?
No, we have not. We met last time that there
Right.
was a threat of a drought, and it might be time to.
I was just bringing it up to say maybe it's time to get serious, start hunkering down and starting to think about what we're gonna actually be doing here. Pick up what we did last time and see what we have to do to bring it forward, right? We already did a lot.
Yes.
You had a lot of stuff you put together last time. We just need to revisit that, get it back on the table and start looking at what we have to do to refresh it.
Yeah, so I'd like to encourage you guys to meet if you have a chance and maybe report back to us at the next meeting.
Well, I'll leave it.
Set that up.
Okay?
Thank you very much.
Yeah, that's correct.
Thanks a lot, Kathleen. And I know with Kathleen working on it, there'll be no problem. Well, I think unless there are other comments, I'd like to have this be a
So
record.
future item, agenda, one other item.
Any
For the
future
agenda.
items? Any agenda
Yeah.
items?
Oh, well, I was gonna ask the general manager to maybe at some point, either October, September, October, November, perhaps bring forward a update on the San Vicente
There you go,
status,
there you
where
go.
we stand on perfecting our rights, the environmental impact report, all those things that were, I know they're all in process. It would just be good to, maybe the next couple of months, to just understand what the status of them is
Okay.
and where we are in the process as an agenda item. Is that cool?
Well, I think it's great, I wasn't gonna bring it up, I'm glad you did.
I'll do that.
No, I'm interested. I really
Oh,
want,
I'm-
that's an important,
I'm
that's
dying
like,
to know,
that's right up there in
I
the
think
top,
it's past time to do that.
yeah.
top tier.
I've been whining behind the scenes for a long time. I'm with you. So anyway, I would, without further ado or further comment, I'd like to adjourn a record meeting of the Coastside County Water District Board of Directors. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Anything to sign? Big checks.
No,
Cheers.
one set of minutes.
That's my new favorite job, man. I love signing those big checks.
Yeah, the best part is it doesn't come out of your account.
That's what I